Okay, welcome everyone. I'm going to start sharing my screen here. This is Kaylin Castell here with Tammy Brunk. And let's do the slideshow thing. Come on, there we go. Oh, and it started with the breakout questions. Okay, I'll go back. So this is the Aquarius, Capricorn, and Virgo, Leo MetaGoddesses that we'll be looking at tonight. And even if these aren't your MetaGoddesses, they can be really helpful to look at, and we'll share more about why that is as we go. But we're going to start with the breakout session. So I think, Tammy, you're going to probably put everybody into a breakout room, and I'm maybe going to tell them what the questions are.
Yeah, I wanted to just check real quick, though. Is it, Lori, are you in India? Next week. Oh,
muted.
Sorry. Maybe in the chat. Can you put it in the chat?
She didn't understand you, I don't think.
Oh, I shouldn't have asked, but I'm just curious because it's been so fun to have people in these different places. So Lori, you're muted, and I'm needing to keep people muted, but you can put it in the chat while we're doing this if you want. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so, but in the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and put us each into different rooms, into breakout rooms.
And while Tammy's doing that, I'm just gonna say, you know, if there's been anything that's emerged for you around the metamorphic phase, especially, but even any of the star phases, it doesn't have to be the metamorphic phase. And that is such a short phase that sometimes you may not have noticed that there was anything specific that had taken place. So if you have, you know, been doing any of that research and found anything significant that you could share in the group. And then also, if you haven't been doing the Venus Life Review or looking at the phases, then you might want to just talk about any ahas that you've had as you've been exploring your own Venus phase, star phase, whether it's morning star, evening star, underworld, metamorphic underworld, your overtone, anything you'd like to share about that. So that's what we're doing.
Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms, and it always just takes a minute. And a couple of you, one of the rooms is going to have 3 people, and the other are going to have 2. So we'll have about 5-6 minutes to do this.
Okay.
Okay. So, and okay, and I think I'm going to assign, actually, let's see. I'm just going to manage, let's see. It's strange. I don't understand exactly why, but.
Well, she can stay with us, right?
Yeah, she can. Yeah, we can do that. Okay, so yeah, hi Beth, can you hear us? Oh gosh, I haven't unmuted people. All these steps. Okay.
All steps, right?
Beth, can you hear us? And can you talk to us now?
What's going on? Whoops. That's not what I meant to do.
Oh, it's a little strange. I don't really see, when I see breakout rooms, I don't see Beth.
Right?
Let's see. Yeah, so I just don't know.
So I just had, I can share a little piece.
Yeah, share a little bit.
It'll be something we'll share again later, but one of the things that really fascinated me was that when I discovered that I had a miscarriage in the metamorphic underworld phase after my first child. And I was like, wow, that was really a quick, like I had this baby and then I didn't have this baby.
Wait, oh, that was in the metamorphic?
Well, yeah, I had the miscarriage in the metamorphic phase,
Oh.
and that was very interesting to me. And yeah, it
Mm.
was also, I felt a little bad because when I thought I might be pregnant, I was praying I wasn't.
Oh, wow.
And I was when they told me I was pregnant, I was like, "You're kidding." And then I thought, "Oh man, this child did not want me to be its mom because I was not. I was a little. My oldest son was only a year old when this all happened, so
Oh,
I
wow.
was not quite ready for another child yet. I wanted another one, but not then.
Right. It was quick.
Yeah, it was quick.
Mm.
So, quick in a lot of ways, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think, this is something I haven't had a chance yet to do, but I think to encourage people if they, I've wanted to just kind of look at each of the different last phases and the time in between when they're switching and just, not just the last 8 years, but we can look and even using your bigger document to look it up and look through my whole life at those metamorphic phases.
Right.
But I believe there was a very big identity shifting event that happened for me when I was about 19 at the end of the Leo cycle, which was that a little girl that I was taking care of got hit by a car. This is my cousin.
Not while you were taking care of her, though.
No, but I had helped her to go to be with a neighbor, and then when she was coming back, she got hit, and but it was she was okay, but for 24 hours I thought she was going to die.
Wow.
Or be it was intense, and I think it was a huge identity shift for me because but yeah, that happened in that, and Pluto was exactly conjunct my Scorpio Mars. Exactly on my Scorpio Mars, and but I think it was in the metamorphic phase.
Yeah, that's interesting because I had Pluto exact conjunction to Saturn, not even a personal planet, when our dog was hit by a car and died in my arms.
Oh my gosh.
I remember Daniel saying, "Oh, it's not really that much of a Pluto cycle," and I was like, "Man, this feels like a really big Pluto cycle." And it was the day it was exact. I mean, literally exact. So these things can happen. It's really insightful. I think when we can, and probably would be interesting for me to go back and look and see where Venus was at that time too.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, more and more, it's just
right.
Doing this work makes me want to look back at the most the leading shift, life-changing events in my life, and ask, what was the MetaGoddess? So to have the inquiry, what was the deeper intent of that? And then to ask what phase it was in, so I get more the flavor of how do those phases work. So it's so powerful.
It is so powerful.
Beth, can you talk? Can you hear us? Can you?
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Can you?
We hear you now.
Oh, I just joined a few minutes ago. Was there a question that you?
Well, the breakout questions are, if you found anything significant in the metamorphic phase, if you've been doing that work, or any of the star phases, if you've been doing that work, or if you've just had any ahas or insights based on your own personal Venus star phase, your overtone. We're going to really be going into the overtones now, but sometimes that can be really insightful for people, even if they don't fully understand what the overtone is.
Yeah, I'm finding the work just so fascinating, and and it's really, I wish I'd discovered it, and I hope that your work gets out there more, because it's such an amazing cycle within the whole astrological cycles. And I right now have been, I think the Inanna Underworld cycle has been so profound for me, because I'm also in this Pluto transit, and and I also have Saturn in Capricorn in my first house. I think I have to look at that again. Yeah. But so that has been so extraordinary, and I've just during the Inanna Underworld, a not person that I was close to, but that I knew of sort of within our spiritual community, we did she committed suicide.
Oh.
And so the world, our world spiritual community was, everybody was obviously very distraught and concerned, and questioning. Suicide is such always a huge question. And we ended up there was a ceremony for her passage, and we ended up doing a sound healing for it. But the really interesting thing for me was that actually the night before, I hope this doesn't sound too much, but anyway, the night before I ended up having this dream, and she ended up jumping off of a bridge. Well, in my dream, I was on a bridge and walking across this bridge as if I were the person that actually were in her position. And so I had both my hands on the guardrails. And then all of a sudden I got to this point, and it was like, no. This is not right. This is not your time. And it was just like, but then I have a fear of heights. And so I was up here and knowing this wasn't my time. But then I had to continue walking to get off the bridge, and was scared to death, and could see, was in this vision space of going, oh my goodness, seeing everything that was in my life to live for. So it wasn't, so it was relating to her, but it was such an intense experience, and so I'm relating that to the Inanna ceremony and cycle, and then we ended up doing this beautiful ceremony for the girl, and we had Robert Thurman giving a talk for her, opening the presentation for her, and he just gave this so beautiful. It was just like life doesn't end, and bringing her in, and so there was a part of the Inanna and also the metamorphic element of that combined.
And when was this fast?
This was. Gosh, I'm no good on time. About 2 weeks ago, I was looking, and it was in the Inanna cycle.
The Inanna world. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a very profound, profound understanding, sort of the cycle, and really relating to the cycle, and and it's experiencing it at the same time, and so I've been, I have this Pluto cycle as well. So I feel like I'm very much undergoing, massive transformation. And at the same time, I'm sort of really enjoying the fact that, Venus is rising again. I've almost been going out looking for the star every night, going, where are you?
Yes. It's been cloudy here ever since, and I'm the same way. It's like, I just want to see you. Can't see you.
I've been driving around going, I've got to get these trees out of the way. I've got to find her. Anyway, so that's my experience. Yeah.
I'm sharing that, Beth, and Tam, you might be wanting to start bringing people back.
I'm closing the rooms now. Yeah.
Okay. I just had a really interesting experience in the last couple of weeks myself, where a woman emailed me about a friend of mine who died of cancer. She was young. She was 39. And I woke up that morning from hearing the words. I thought the words were, he dropped dead. But later that day, I found out she had stood up out of her bed and dropped dead to the floor. So then I realized the words were probably, she dropped dead, but I didn't hear it correctly as I was waking up. And
yeah.
So this woman had known her and just found out that she had passed. And this happened in 2009. So 9 years ago, almost 9 years ago. It also, when I looked it up, it was at the death by intent gate.
Oh my gosh.
when she passed.
Wow.
And in this, also in this cycle, right? In this cycle that death finds.
Yes.
Right.
And so we started having this little conversation, and it turns out she's the daughter of James Hillman, who is
Oh.
the psycho Jungian psychotherapist. He's written a bunch of books. Anyway, that we have on our reading list for people who are in the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School. So it's just like this been amazing kind of like, wow, and reconnect, because I had a really powerful connection with this woman for many years. We had done a lot of things together, and then she was one of the priestesses in my community, and we'd facilitated things together and so on, and then suddenly she was gone. So
yeah.
So
no, I feel like I'm just, scratch the surface, and sometimes I understand and sometimes I don't understand, and I'm completely lost.
wow. Yeah,
yeah. Anyway, thank you all so much.
Yeah. So we've got everybody coming back now. Beth, thank you for sharing, and Kaylin, those are clearly, there are some powerful initiations that happen in these windows. I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone and unmute you, Kaylin. Oops. Okay, there you are.
Awesome, thank you. All right.
Okay.
So, we're going to start, and I just, this is a place, we've already mentioned this, but it's always good to revisit it, that because when we are looking at the overtone or the MetaGoddess, there's many different ways of figuring it out. And we just want to, again, say no right or wrong way, because, of course, however we're dreaming it is how it's going to play out in our reality. And so for Ariel Gutman and for Adam Gainsbourg, who've written these books, and they have a specific way, Ariel's very much about using the sun conjunction. Now, we don't do that, and there's a question about this later on that comes up in this, but we don't do that because you can't see Venus. She's with the sun. So the ancients looked at the time when she was visible. So there's many different ways of starting the cycle, many different ways to determine the star phases. We're definitely using the Anana story as our way of figuring it out. And we've found it to be very powerful. But if you find a way that's more resonant than this for you, then, go for it.
Well, and I think too, it's important to say, even this idea of the MetaGoddess, that's actually kind of unique. It's something that we kind of dreamed into. It was the overtone, and this is part of what's come through the work of doing this deeper dive into the different, what we're calling phases. And of course, it's not referred to as, I think it's star points. Is that what Ariel Gutman refers to?
Calls them star points, yes. Morning star point or evening star point.
Yeah,
That's all she's looking at. She's not looking at underworld points or anything.
Right, yeah.
So,
but
that can be good information. And then at the same time, like I met a person recently who had an evening star point, had studied with Ariel's book and everything, and could not relate to the star point at all. She thought she was Aries, but when she found out that it was Virgo, MetaGoddess, she's like, oh, I totally get that. If you went back to the beginning of the cycle. So, it's like just finding what works for you. And we're not saying our way is the only way or it's the right way, but it has really worked well for us because, of course, this is how we're dreaming it.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of fun with it.
Yes.
So the overtone, which again, that was kind of the original way of referencing the MetaGoddess or the cycle. So the word overtone is defined as a musical note. It's part of a harmonic series. It's above the fundamental note. It may be heard with the fundamental tone. It's a subtle or subsidiary quality or an implication or connotation. So it's not leading, but it's influencing the overall effect. That's what overtone means, which is interesting when I really look at that, right? Because that's interesting. I'm not sure. It does in some ways, I would say, feel like the MetaGoddess is leading. But in any case, it's an underlying flavor or energy that we're working with through the full cycle.
Well, I think the point is that whatever sign Venus is in is the leading edge for a person in terms of what they're here to learn about in terms of if it's a woman for her feminine expression, emerging feminine expression. If it's for a man, is connection to the inner feminine. But the MetaGoddess, or the overtone, or the overarching theme of that, and I love this image that Tammy found about, you can see how it's infused through it all. So it really gives us additional information about what that energy is about. So we're going to be diving much more deeply into this, and you'll understand probably what we mean by that as we go along.
Well, it's fun because it's like, okay, even as I say that, it's like, is it leading? And what is a feminine style of leadership? It's more of that connecting with the whole, but having a powerful influence. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, it is influencing the overall effect.
Yeah.
But the leading edge, meaning your Venus sign Venus is in, is the leading edge of the archetype of the feminine. You're here to learn, explore, express, help evolve, all of those things that we talk about. But the overtone, or the MetaGoddess, is also a very significant piece that helps us to understand it more deeply. Yeah.
So the Venus overtone it has to do with, as we've been dreaming into this, it feels pretty clear that it has a lot to do with the contribution a person is making in the world. And you can see that when you start to play with this, looking up famous people, seeing what overtone they were born into, what is their MetaGoddess, you can really see it in the themes that show up in their contribution in the world. So it influenced our whole life. It's why we refer to her as the MetaGoddess. She's transpersonal instead of a personal kind of energy. She bridges the divide between our personal journey and the bigger collective story we are part of. And the idea is that life is more fulfilling when we're being informed by and in service to our Venus overtone MetaGoddess. So it's an important ingredient that needs to be included into our lives. And it's confirmed when we look at the overtones, again, of famous individuals who are truly living their soul's intent through looking at the themes, the content of their work in the world, when it's aligned with their overtone MetaGoddess. So a couple of examples, and when I was doing, when we write articles, when we've done research into this, we've been fascinated to see how this shows up. But Winona LaDuke is one that I just found, and of course she's a powerful leader within the indigenous community up on, oh gosh, I can't even remember, up in Minnesota. But she was at one time, she was running for vice presidency, but she's also been very deeply connected to restoring the health and the well-being of her own community, of her own tribal community, and also being a voice for indigenous peoples across the U.S. and across the globe. She's also very radical in a way. She's like that radical revolutionary, but also traditionalist in some sense. So she kind of embodies those Aquarius Capricorn qualities. And then Vandana Shiva, she's such a big force in the world. She definitely has that Leo quality of being someone who's not afraid to be a big force in the world, a creator. But she also, at the root with Virgo, what her work has to do with is restoring a connection with Gaia and reverence for the earth with her focus on GMOs and really, fighting the big GMO industries across the globe, and especially, of course, in her native India. So those are just two examples.
Well, I love that she's doing that. We need more of that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And you'll see that with a lot of leading environmentalists, that they have that Virgo Leo overtone. I saw a lot of that.
So this is just the pentagram in the sky that Venus forms. We started doing this work in 2014 when Venus became the Capricorn MetaGoddess. We continued on into 2015 when it was the Leo MetaGoddess. Of course, we've been doing the Aries MetaGoddess. We're soon going to be doing the Libra MetaGoddess. It's a shift from Scorpio. And then it'll be Gemini and then back to Capricorn, forming the 5-pointed star. And we're going to just give you also some quick looks at how, this is how it shifts over time. So over 8 years, it takes to form one whole pentagram, and then each time it shifts back just slightly to a couple of days. And sometimes it takes 96 years or 104 years, 112 years to shift through a whole sign. So it'll be rising in the signs for that many years. And then just to know that it takes about 1,247 years for that pentagram, that week, to make a whole complete turn. So
Such a cool image.
yeah, something we won't experience in our lifetime, but it's kind of fun to know that. That's how it's working, shifting slightly back. And so again, go ahead.
Just want to say briefly that this information, which Kaylin has really pulled together in the upcoming slides, just to know that this is really useful and powerful information that some of you are really going to want to have access to, just to look at the bigger cycle and the bigger story. And for some of us, it might also be a little bit overwhelming in terms of the technical details. So don't worry if you don't feel like you understand all of it right now. This is a resource for you to look at later if you don't get it yet. And it's useful to have this. So anyway.
Right. So just, you know, the 96, the 104, the 112 years, if Venus rises in a specific sign 12 times over its 96 years, and then it shifts into a new sign, or if it's 13 times, it's 104 years, and then it shifts into a new sign, or if it's 14 times, it lasts 112 years and then shifts. The average is 104 years. And what was really interesting for me was I always heard the 104 years, didn't hear the average part, and didn't realize that there's actually some that are shorter and some that are longer. So when I did this, I was like, oh, I love this pattern. I got so excited. Anyway, so this is, I'm not going to go through all of this, but this is something you can look at, like when were the last times, and really, you know, might find it interesting. It was 1878 to 1966. The last time Venus rose in Aquarius was in 1966, and then in 1974, 8 years later, it rose in Capricorn. And that's one of the ones we're going to be looking at. And then by the time we get to 2077, it's going to be rising in Sagittarius. So it does shift, but it's, you know, it takes it a while for that to happen. It's in Capricorn for 104 years. There's 13 times it's rising in Capricorn. So there's more of this if you want to just kind of look at that and get more deeply into it. And then this also, this was kind of fun. This is all 12 of them. And just how many times they rose in the sign, and how, you know, and when the next ones start. Right now we have Leo going on, so I didn't put that in. We have Capricorn going on, so I didn't put that one in, but you know, you kind of get the idea.
And this is, you know, you can see that you could do some really powerful historical research into what kinds of themes were showing up in the culture during these periods.
Especially in the feminine, you know, for the feminine leaders that were in the world at that time, or the, you know, the people that were prominent as women at that particular time, what was going on when those particular cycles were happening. Pretty amazing.
Right, or for example, wasn't it that it was in the Aries cycle that women first got the right to vote, or I can't remember, there's, well,
actually, yeah, I think it is true, because 1921 was the first time it rose in Aries, and I think that was right around the time they were starting to get the right to vote. Sometimes we feel these coming a little bit before, so I don't remember the exact date of when they got the right to vote, but you know, Aries was already starting to come on the scene, just like I've been feeling Libra. So we'll talk about that one.
Me too, yeah.
So anyway, these are the people in the class, and again, I kind of looked through them all, and there may be some errors here. So if I messed up anybody, but we have 3 people with the Aquarius Capricorn overtone: Kimye, Viola, and Martha. Kimye and Viola are in the evening star phase, and also Kimye is Aquarius, was her overtone when she was born. It shifted to Capricorn, but she was also Venus in Aquarius. So sometimes it's interesting to note when it's in the same sign. And for the Virgo Leo overtone, we have Mary, who has Virgo overtone, and then it was also Venus in Virgo. And she's evening star, so because of course it comes back to that particular sign, and so it's not like there's extra archetypal energy to integrate there, but we can integrate archetypal energy from looking at the fact that it's evening star.
And I mean, looking at Mary's, for example, it's like, if you'll remember that evening star has a lot of resonance with Virgo and with the earth signs.
Yes.
Mary, there's just like, wow, there shares a lot of that kind of priestess, you know, sage, that wise woman kind of energy coming through.
So if I missed anyone, let us know. If you know, I was looking through a lot of charts, and sometimes it gets confusing, so I did the best I could. So hopefully I did it right.
Awesomely. So with the overtone shifts, whenever it's it's kind of you can already sense and feel how when we talk about the metamorphic goddess and that metamorphic period, when, for example, we shifted from Leo to Aries in this last cycle, that is a time of powerful alchemy, culmination of alchemy at that point. But this in a meta scale is when, for example, we're going to be shifting, well, when we shifted from Aquarius to Capricorn MetaGoddess in that overtone in 1974, and then September 3rd, 1975, then you're moving to a new MetaGoddess, and it's really a time of kind of magic and mystery. So for those born in Virgo or Aquarius overtones, your MetaGoddess now shows up as Leo or Capricorn. So theoretically, you have fully integrated the teachings in the MetaGoddess of the Venus overtone. So your overtone or your MetaGoddess will always be the one you were born into. If you were born when the MetaGoddess was Virgo, so you're currently, but you are currently in training with the MetaGoddess of your new overtone. So it's kind of like you've already got this base, but so you're working with both energies basically. So our research shows life themes, particularly those that play during Venus returns, will shift with the overtone. So, you know, if you look at a person's life and when that shifts from Virgo to Leo, for example, you're going to see new themes show up that reflect that MetaGoddess. But also, again, you know, like I've said, we've had, when I was doing research into a lot of famous people with these archetypes, part of what kept showing up for me, because my interest has always been in the environment, I guess, were all these environmentalists, like from Bill McKibben to Vandana Shiva to Rachel Carson. Like, actually, it wasn't Rachel Carson, but there were many who had that Virgo to Leo archetype. And the way it felt to me was that, like it says, you know, like we're saying here, they've got that Virgo concern for the earth deeply integrated, and then with the Leo, it helps them to go out into the world and shine and spread their message. So that's part of how you can see it showing up.
So someone was asking about why are there two, and so basically what we're talking about is you're born with one MetaGoddess, but if it shifts to another sign, and some, you know, depends, some people will never have a shift because, you know, perhaps they're born near the beginning of the overtone. So for example, if somebody's born in November of 2018, they're going to have the Libra MetaGoddess their whole life.
Yeah.
Unless they live to be past like 104. I forget how many it's going to show up in, but, you know, pretty much are going to have it their whole life. If somebody's born near the end, it's like somebody born in 1966, it was the Virgo, was that right? Or Aquarius piece, and then it shifted.
Yes, right.
Yeah. So it was shifted to Capricorn. So so basically they're gathering both of those energies. And then those of us that have like the Scorpio ones we were born with, well, the next one starting in November, Venus is rising in Libra, so it's shifting. The energy is shifting there as well. So that's why. So the overtones, you know, this is just another way to look at it a little more deeply. Like, you know, as Tammy's been saying, if it was your intent, you know, you were really connected to the earth, and now you're here to become an inspirational leader. If it's Aquarius Capricorn, you might have been, you know, in that place of being the female avatar, expanding consciousness, or being a revolutionary in some kind of crazy, wild, and unusual way. But now it's like, how do you bring it to the village? How do you do it in a practical way that can be sustainable for the future generations? So
I want to say, actually it was 74, it says 75, but it was, I guess, January 30th, 1974, that it shifted to Aquarius.
And Aquarius shifted to Capricorn.
Aquarius to Capricorn, right, yeah.
Yeah, and it was in 1975 when Virgo shifted to Leo. So we had two that shifted very quickly.
Oh, okay, right, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So this is just, if you're doing the Venus Life Review, we just put the slide in again so you can see the dates really clearly and easily, and it can just help you to kind of go back and review what was maybe going on for you. So now what we're going to do is go into each of the MetaGoddesses of Aquarius, Capricorn, Virgo, and Leo.
Actually, there's another question though. Ariane is asking, but on the Venus chart, 1929 to 2082, the overtone shifts every year or so. Yes, so what that's about is every 19 months you will see, or every year and a half or 19 months, you'll see a different MetaGoddess show up. and that's kind of the cycle to cycle that we're talking, you know, from one cycle to the next. It will be, and then you'll have a cycle of 5 of those. But that, what we're talking about is that, so like what Kaylin's saying is that for this current Aries cycle, for example, every 8 years we'll have Venus rise as morning star in the sign of Aries. That's been happening for the last 102 years. But now, because the sign, but now in the next cycle, 8 years from now, when this cycle begins, it will be in the sign of Pisces, because it will only be doing that 8-year cycle in Aries for about 100 years, 104 years on average.
And that'll be the next class when we talk about
Oh, it will be. Okay.
Yeah, next class when we talk about that one. So, you know, that'll help. You'll probably understand it better when we talk about these and how they've been shifting and basically what it means. But we've written these invocations to the MetaGoddess, and it kind of helps bring the energy of her present while we talk about her. So I'm gonna do this one really quickly here, just to help bring that energy into the field for those of you who have the Aquarius MetaGoddess that you were born with. And then we'll also do a Capricorn one so you can see the energy for that one. So here we go. O great goddess of innovative, revolutionary ideas, you whose brilliant vision inspires universal love and high ideals, help us to remember that all beings have the right to find their own individual path to innovative freedom, beyond the limitations, rules, and restrictions of the patriarchal culture. Guide us to experience your free electron ways as a radical change agent. Show us how we can access personal freedom to be and express the best of these mysteries. Guide us in mastering appropriate and healthy ways to detach so we have easier access to our high witness self, where we more easily observe the widest possible cosmic view. Guide us to create freedom from all that has been known so we know something that hasn't been known before, in ways that change everything, evolving and expanding our perspective and our awareness, so we know, remember, and live our true divine essence. And that really kind of sums it up. So, as we will see going into this, she is, you know, really here to help us liberate the feminine from the patriarchal conditioning, and you know, to teach us how to be free electrons, how to choose our own way, how to access the brilliant feminine mind. She's here to discover, and can also be true if you have Venus in Aquarius. These are part of the energies that you're working with, but we're specifically looking at here how this MetaGoddess helps to inform whatever sign our Venus might be in, if you have this as part of your MetaGoddess. She's also about discovering her own unique style of revolutionary freedom, finding our unique cutting-edge way of being, experiencing universal love, and how to cultivate egalitarian ideals, something Aquarius really likes. To be an experimenter, especially with new ideas, how to access other realms and dimensions. Sorry about that. She's really about going beyond the concepts that are known so that we can go to innovative new possibilities, and how we can experience the celestial realms of bliss, one of my favorite possibilities for the Aquarius goddess. And also about expanding our consciousness and our perspectives, and you know, so we're not locked into certain ways of being, so that we can connect to that bigger picture cosmic overview, and that we can move beyond the restrictions of the middle world rules and concepts. So we also put in this, we're not going to go over this right now, but if you have natal Venus in Aquarius, and also even the Aquarius MetaGoddess too, this can be part of what you're learning. There's some challenges, there's always an intent, there's gifts. Also, these are some famous people that have Venus in Aquarius that you might find interesting to know, just in terms of how have they shown up to express these qualities. So,
yeah. So beautiful. So, and then following that, of course, we had the shift then in 74 to the Capricorn MetaGoddess. So, her invocation. O radiant, shining creatrix of restored human culture, you whose wisdom emerges from all lines of human experience across space and time, speaking true through all the ages, you who speak to us through the circle of grandmothers and our awakened DNA. Reveal to us the path forward to an age of restoration, well-being, peace, and plenty for all life on earth and our human family. Help us heal any wounds that keep us small and bound by the past. Show us how to mend the fabric of the world, the sacred hoop of life, beginning with ourselves. Remind us of our true human nature, including our role as stewards of our earth and co-creators of our collective human destiny, intertwined with the destiny of Gaia, our mother.
Yes.
Love Capricorn. So Capricorn MetaGoddess, she is the cultural creatrix, and she guides us. And I love this image too. She's such a gorgeous elder. She guides us to encounter and heal the wounding of ancestral culture, to engage the reality that we do enough and we are enough, to cultivate healthy boundaries, to stand strong and centered, to build a culture in harmony with Earth and next generations, and to claim our path as way shower and wisdom keeper in our communities. So traditionally, Capricorn held the distortions, the ancestral wound of the culture. At the turning of the ages, Capricorn, particularly you could say over the last 5,000 years of patriarchy, Capricorn has held some of those distortions. At the turning of the ages, though, Capricorn's contribution is to perceive and encounter the wound and compost it into the fresh soil of restored culture. Guided by the circle of the grandmothers whose wisdom resides in our DNA and provides us access to past and future realities. So when our overtone is in Capricorn, we're learning to honor the material dimension of life by managing our time, money, and physical space wisely. And as we master that 3D reality, we're empowered as trustworthy leaders and guides in our communities, so we can take joyful responsibility for co-creating the new Earth community. And again, I'm not going to go over this, but this is for you. If you happen to have Venus in Capricorn or have people that you know, clients that have that, this is more information about that.
And then we're going to move to the Virgo Leo overtone. And again, if you have this as your overtone or your MetaGoddess and you're doing your life review, this is just a simple way to figure out the dates of when that was happening. So here we have the invocation to the Leo MetaGoddess. O radiant and shining one, Queen of heaven and earth, inspired by your brilliant love light, we ask that you guide us into the depths of your mysteries. Guide us to fully experience radical sovereignty and genuine, radiant, divine self-love, no matter what is happening in our outer reality. We invite you to bless us with your wisdom, insight, and radiant love, transforming all lower vibrational frequencies into the higher vibrational frequencies of the divine love light that you are, we are, so that we truly show up and shine with this luminous love light in all ways, and in so doing, inspire others to do the same. So the Leo MetaGoddess is the divine sovereign queen. And we really had a lot of fun with this one when we just completed that class last year. It was so much fun. I loved doing this one. And not that I have Leo MetaGoddess, but I do have some Leo on my chart. So it's like, and it's not an easy place for me to go into. Yeah. So anyway, this MetaGoddess is guiding us to really show up and really shine our love light in the world, to know that shining is natural and easy when we remember we are the divine light. And that when we become aware of where we are in judgment of ourselves or others, that we can begin to then transform that judgment, that self-judgment. It's like one of the ways I like to say it is it has to do with self-confidence, self-acceptance, self-approval, self-respect, self-love, of course, is part of that. And that it's all about transforming those thoughts and feelings and experiences that don't fall, that don't really support the full-on experience of that experience of radical radiant self-love. And so it's about shining. And I love this piece because this is, for me, I think the one of the most important pieces is that if we think about when we're able to let our light shine, when we're able to show up and shine, it doesn't mean we have to do anything, accomplish anything, make anything happen. We just allow that light to shine. And it's this, that is really the primary motivation for the Leo MetaGoddess. She's not here to help others, really. It's just like she shows up, she shines, and then it just automatically happens from that place. So, you know, it's like showing up and then the light can shine wherever it is. And this is very similar to how the sun doesn't just shine on a few or one side of the street, not the other side of the street. It really shines on everyone. So when our personal love light is shining, vibrant, healthy, radiant, it really uplifts everyone around us. This is what the healthy Leo goddess, why she is so charismatic and fun to be around. So it's when it's healthy, because of course there is the shadow of Leo that maybe not so fun to be around. But we're talking about definitely the highest expression, the highest essence of this Leo MetaGoddess and whatever that might be. So these are some of the famous people, and you know, some of the things that if you have Venus and Leo, that you can just kind of tune into, as well as some maybe other aspects of the MetaGoddess that might show up as well.
Awesome. So then, of course, Leo shifted, or actually Virgo shifted into Leo. But the Virgo, here's the Virgo MetaGoddess invocation. O great goddess of the sacred pattern, you who weave the web of creation, and whose breath and heartbeat is aligned with the pulse of the living earth, help us remember to live our lives as sacred ceremony, aligned with the seasons and cycles of creation. Restore within us our innate knowing of the sacred patterning within as it relates to the sacred pattern without, and how these patterns are meant to harmoniously align for the benefit of all. Help us attune to the secret language and pattern of the stars and planets, the winds and the waters, the land and all her creatures. Guide us into our most hallowed sacred work. Instill within us deep devotion and sacred service to all life. Assist us in once again creating this world as holy and whole from the inside out.
Oh, she's awesome.
She's beautiful. So the Virgo MetaGoddess guides us to restore a culture of reverence toward the living earth, and align human systems to be in harmony with Gaia. So I'll see, for example, if you know anything about, any of you know anything about biomimicry, Janine Benyus, this is work she does where it's about using ecological systems as a guide for creating human systems. Remembering and restoring the priestess archetype, bringing her back online, honoring the divine feminine within the collective, living life as ceremony and encouraging others to do the same. Knowing your sovereignty. So this is a link between the Leo and Virgo goddesses. They're both sovereign and whole unto themselves. So knowing you are whole and holy, holding the divine feminine presence in a powerful way as the priestess goddess is part of what she does. So Virgo is the sovereign virgin priestess, remembering the sacred ceremonies that keep human culture in balance with the natural seasons and cycles. So like Spider-Woman in Native American culture, she weaves the web of creation. She has the power, with the slightest movement of the threads, to maintain order and balance in the world through her connection to Gaia. She is the original virgin archetype, whole unto herself. And when our overtone is Virgo, it is our sacred work to bring the divine feminine presence back into the world, consecrating it and making it holy again. So you are here to help realign human culture with the pattern of creation and to orchestrate the ceremonies to maintain that pattern. And, you know, I think I've often seen with Virgo individuals that there's something about the way that there's this understanding, there's a humbleness also to Virgo, even though there's an impeccability and an honoring of oneself and of the divine feminine. There's a humbleness, there's an aspect of being of service. Sometimes it's like you're the invisible person who is actually affecting profound change in the world around you, but by doing small things that have tremendous impact. And they're tremendous because you're attuned to the actual living vibration of the way that the universe actually operates. And so you can do one slight little thing and you can change the whole pattern. So there's something very powerful about that virgin archetype if you work with that MetaGoddess, or if it's your Venus sign, or if you have Virgo in your chart in another place.
Yeah, you know, that virgin archetype, I mean, the original meaning of the word virgin meant not married or whole unto oneself. But then as things began to shift and the patriarchy came in and they disbanded the priestesses from the temple, that word became associated with having not ever had sex.
Right.
But that is not the original meaning of the word virgin, just in case anybody is not aware of that in this work. And you know that part of the disbanding too of the priestesses, it was a disempowering of the feminine. And then what happened was Virgo didn't really have a place to do her sacred work. And so then she became what's considered critical and nitpicky and, you know, cold and all of those things. But I don't feel, in my experience of this archetype, when it's really healthy, that's not really the essence of Virgo. And I just want to say really quickly, we've had a lot of women over the years come to shamanic astrology events and not want to admit that they had Moon in Virgo or Venus in Virgo, because there's been such a strong judgment about this archetype in the collective culture, you know, in this, even in the astrological world, right? That it seems to be evolving and growing very quickly now, but that, you know, there'd be times where they'd be just like, oh, I'm so ashamed I have Virgo. And we're like, oh, we want to celebrate that and bring it back to what its original essence was.
And I think that's so powerful you say that, Kaylin, because, you know, I was introduced to astrology through shamanic astrology. And so for me, I've always had this deep reverence for the Virgo feminine because it's embedded within the work. So it's just so interesting to think, you know, and when I do readings for people like you, Kaylin, probably so often it is about actually healing a person's perception. If their sun's in Virgo also, healing their perception around it. Because, yeah, there's a big distortion. The priestesses that archetype has been lost in the culture and her essence.
Right. You know, I'm just, as you're saying that, for some reason, I've just flashed on this event we did at Faywood Hot Springs. It was a December solstice event. So there was snow on the ground. It was crazy. There's one woman there and she had a lot of Virgo. And at the end of it, she said, I'm almost excited about having Virgo. So she made progress, because before she said, because I was totally not wanting to admit that I had it.
Wow.
That's so funny. Anyway.
So, but I think you're right, though. It is changing in the culture, and shamanic astrology is contributing to that. Because when I tell people they have Virgo in their chart now, they're excited. They're like, wow, I get to be the priestess. Like, how cool is that? I mean, everybody wants to be a priestess, right? That's pretty amazing and magical. So
back in the mid-90s, when I was first doing priestess work, they called it the P word. They wouldn't even say priestess because it was too scary.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And again, testament to the deep work that's been done that now creates that space where we can claim it. So if you have Virgo in Venus in Virgo, or if you know others who do, this is just, again, something more for you to kind of deepen into that.
Yes, right. Oops. So we came up with questions, and if you were born with the Aquarius Venus overtone, you can work with the first question, and then if it shifted to the Capricorn Venus overtone, then you can also work with that. Or if you just have the Capricorn overtone, then you would probably just work with that question. But journaling around these questions, taking deeper, gives you a stronger sense of, how this may be showing up for you or not showing up for you, or whatever that's about. So what would it take for me to live and express as a free electron, experimenting with innovative ways of perceiving reality from a higher love, higher vision, and egalitarian perspective? She likes to fly, so this is somebody who's skydiving.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome.
Right, and then the Capricorn Venus overtone, what would it take for me to know and feel satisfied that I'm playing my part to build a more sustainable, earth-loving human culture? So.
And the Virgo, or the Virgo and the Leo questions are, for Virgo, what would it take for me to live my life as a high priestess, doing ceremony with myself and or my priestess sisters aligned with reverence and sacred time, honoring our beloved earth and all life is sacred? And Kaylin, this is your photo, I think, right?
Yes, this was actually an initiation we did for you could call it high priestess. We were working with the Magdalene archetype, which is a high priestess energy, back in 1996.
Wow,
yeah,
that's awesome.
And my mom is in this picture actually right here. This is my mom. And she, this was 96, she died in 98, so 2 years later, she was gone.
Wow.
We were the first mother-daughter priestess, to be in a priestess circle together in the lineage of Nicole. And this is Nicole Christine right here, who started this whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so powerful. So, and then the Leo Venus overtone question is, what would it take for me to live a daily practice of loving myself, no matter what is happening in my outer reality? So I feel confident to, and I cannot read this because, what is it, Kaylin? The last line?
To show up and shine my light.
Awesome. Yay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is, when we did the class last time, we had these questions that came in, and we've kind of already answered some of them, but, and of course the written answer is also here, but just quickly, that, how many times a person would experience the overtone change in their lifetime would probably be one, unless you live to be, 96, past 96, maybe you were born at the beginning, at the end of one, and then you live to be 104 or something, and it could happen twice, but it's somewhat unlikely that that's going to happen. And then, of course, we use the Venus rising as morning star to begin the cycle, not when she's conjunct the sun. And the reason is because we can see her, and that's what the ancient people worked with, is when they could see her. And a lot of astrologers like to use the conjunction with the sun because it's easy to calculate when that's happening. So that's why they do it. It makes it simple to write books. For challenging, we use a 10-degree orb to just say, for sure Venus has risen when she's 10 degrees from the sun. And sometimes she's actually visible before that, especially in the morning sky, because she just pops up right before the sun, so bright and so brilliant. And the ancient people thought that was just really stunning, and that was why they began the cycle there. So that's what that's about.
And yeah, we love your questions. So, and it's great when you're asking them in here, and then if those, and on Facebook, you can ask questions there. If you're not on Facebook, you can send your questions in an email. We'll do our best to answer them. Or in this case, defer them to the next class. And our last class is the next class, actually, which is hard to believe.
Right?
But if we missed your question on Facebook, which is possible, please send it again. We're doing our best to keep track of this. And sometimes we do lose track. So be persistent if we somehow have missed something. I know sometimes the Facebook thread will get a little off on that. We do our best.
Yes. So basically the deepening practices are pretty much what we did before, but looking at the Venus Life Review. But you could also, if you're not really wanting to do that, you might actually even just pick a MetaGoddess that is interesting to you, or maybe you have strongly on your chart, but not as your Venus, or not. Maybe it's your Mars, or maybe it's your rising sign, or sun, or some moon, or something that you want to connect with. And then we're going to give you a couple of examples of how you can do that, because we did that.
And I'll just say too, it might be something that doesn't show up in your chart at all. And in that case, it's kind of interesting to see how this has still been a presence in your life. Right.
Yeah. And then, you can choose one of the questions that we also gave you to meditate on. And then you can also go back to the last PDF for class 4. And if you need a refresher on how to do the Venus Life Review, and that's all there. And then, of course, I just want to say I've been doing this now for quite a long time, and I know, Tammy, you have too, and I'm continually putting pieces together.
Yeah, it's such a powerful, it's already a powerful thing to be able to go back in a meaningful way and review what's happened in your life. But through this lens, through the lens of the way that you are being guided through the divine feminine in your life, through the Venus cycle, it will blow your mind if you really deepen into this as a tool of reflection.
Yes, so beautiful. So I'm just, we started the Venus alchemy work in the Capricorn cycle, And one of the things that was really interesting to me was to look back to the beginning of that cycle and to see how this particular cycle has been very influential in my life. So in 1974, I graduated from high school. Then I started college in August. I had a terrible experience that I just was like so not happy there. I left in December of 1994, just as Venus was rising into the evening sky. And in April, I forgot to put this in there, but in April of 1975, I went to Maharishi International University in Fairfield, Iowa. So we were still in the Capricorn cycle for a few more months. And I had the best 3 years of my life for many years at that, being involved with, it was like people who thought like I did, people who were meditating and who were like on a spiritual path, and it made my Sag moon so happy. Anyway, so that happened in that cycle. And then in 1982, when we had the Capricorn MetaGoddess again, I had my first child, and he was born in the morning star phase. And then we had this unexpected move 2 months later. That sometimes is a theme for me in this particular cycle. And then in August of 1983, as the cycle was completing in the metamorphic underworld, I had a miscarriage, which was really impacted my life in a big way. I was not ready to have another child yet, so I felt guilty when I had the miscarriage. Part of me was a little bit relieved, but also, whatever. And then I went on to have twins the next, a little over a year and a half later or something like that. So then the universe doubled up on me after that, but not in this cycle. In 1990, I got married for the second time while Venus was retrograde after Venus rose in the morning sky. So it was in a between phase. Very interesting considering everything that happened in that relationship did complete in 2006. And then, of course, in May, I was pregnant. That's the reason we got married. Well, it's not the reason we got married, but it was a reason we got married when we did. Because my youngest son was born during the morning star phase of the Capricorn cycle. And then we moved into a new house just as Venus was conjunct the sun in the underworld phase there as well. And then in 1998, I found out my mom had cancer in July during the morning star phase. She died 3 weeks later at the sacral chakra gate on August 18th. And that was a profound initiation that I experienced around, attending to her and her death process. She really did a conscious death that was pretty amazing. So it was a real gift she gave me. And I became the oldest living female in my family line at the age of 42. I was not ready for that.
Capricorn, powerful Capricorn.
Right? Right. Like suddenly I'm the matriarch. Like, how did that happen? And I'm too young for this. Was part of what I was dealing with. And then in 2006, I filed for divorce in May at the heart chakra gate. It was final at the sacral chakra gate. Again, that sacral chakra coming up. And that was also when I legally changed my name to an entirely new name, and the divorce was final. And actually I didn't put this here, but so that happened in August when the divorce was final. And then in October, Peter and I got married at that time. And it's been the best marriage ever. I just, three's the charm, as they say. So we got married in that cycle. And then in 2014, of course, one of my favorite things that happened is being able to go back and look at all these things that happened in all these other 8-year cycles and the profound insights that we've been gaining from this Venus Alchemy online journey, and how transformative it's been in our understanding, our experience, our everything about this. And it was really being guided by the grandmothers to have this journey. And this picture of me was I think it was at the solar plexus gate, and I hiked to this grandmother cave and saw these rainbows and just had this huge experience at that time. That was part of the magic of that particular, this particular cycle. So
awesome. So yeah, it's just so powerful to do this. when I was going through the Leo Venus Life Review, I have no Leo in my chart whatsoever. I do have Aries Ascendant, which can look and feel that way in some ways, but no Leo. So I thought it was interesting. When I was about 4 years old, my oldest sister, who is the big Leo presence in my life, she got married. She's Leo AC and overtone, and I was a flower girl in her wedding, which happened about at the crown chakra, which is interesting. And then when I was about between 10 years and 3/4 to 12, is when I returned to public school in 7th grade. I lost my best friend, but I regained kind of my social self. I always had this more gregarious, outgoing self that I'd lost in the years when I was being homeschooled. And this is a theme for me with the Leo cycle, is coming back out into the world and being more of a presence, overcoming my shyness. And then the next one, between 18 years to 20, is when I moved to Philadelphia. I sold books door to door, just a ridiculous thing to make money for college, but I was actually very, very good at it. I think I made like $11,000 one summer, which was pretty wild. But I was really coming into my own power in that way. I traveled to Europe. I also see a theme in the Leo cycles around self-love, where I would go into relationships, and I experienced rape actually in that cycle, and then healing from that relationship, which was a theme in the Leo cycle for me, around self-love, actually coming through these deep initiations with the wounded masculine. And then when I was 26 to 28, I had my best paying job ever. I'd always been kind of a misfit when it came to, being real in the world. And it was again, I was kind of a leader in the community, managing a watershed project, as a visionary leader in my community. I also, in that same time, I was really focusing on self-care and again healing from a relationship that had been pretty costly to me, and stepping more into self-love from that. And then from 34 to 36, I stepped up as a leader with this nonprofit organization in Albuquerque, working with Indigenous youth as a development director. And I helped to really grow that business from the ground up so that it got funding from Kellogg and became really successful. And I also, at that time, as I was transitioning from that work, was establishing myself as a professional astrologer. And then again, here's this theme in partnership where my partner cheated on me in that cycle. So there's something for me, when I look at these experiences, it's like really asking the questions about the MetaGoddess, and it seems contradictory, but often in these experiences with the masculine that have been very painful or challenging, I can look and see the ways that those experiences have actually been helping to train and teach me into radical self-love. From 42 to 44 was the Sekhmet Temple initiation, and stepping up as a teacher at, there was a Vision Council gathering in Mexico. This gathering I'd gone to about 13 years before as a participant, and so these years later I was actually a leader in that and facilitating workshops. I also facilitated workshops in Costa Rica, so that was when I began to teach internationally. And then also going through a separation and breakup and healing from a partnership of 10 years and leaving New Mexico. So the Leo cycles have been big cycles of transformation for me, and had a lot of, deep experiences with the masculine that I've always come out of feeling, coming into phases of healing and empowerment and focusing on self.
So those are a couple of examples of how you can, if you want to just look at the overtones that we're working with in this week and go back and look, and you have the dates of when they were happening, and just go back and look at what might have been happening for you and how it fits in with the theme of that particular MetaGoddess, as we did here. So we just gave you kind of examples, and this was the first time I'd actually written it all out. I think maybe you too, Tammy, written it all out, and then seeing pieces that I hadn't seen before, which was amazing. Like, wow, that is so cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the themes that you see show up, I think it's a couple of things. It's seeing the patterns that show up in these 8-year cycles, some of which are very surprising. And then it's also looking at it through that lens of what the MetaGoddess is trying to guide you towards and help you to learn. And so it brings a depth of inquiry that is very, very powerful and healing.
Yeah, so we encourage you, if you feel inspired, to definitely do that. So I think we're at the end here. Yep. So I'm going to stop the share, and I guess Tammy, you're going to do a little journey for us.
Yes, I'm going to do a very simple journey once again. And first of all, I just want to make sure, I'm going to kind of assume that we all know what our overtone or our MetaGoddess is at this stage. If you somehow do not know your MetaGoddess, this is no judgment. Just consider an archetype of the goddess that we've explored so far and let her come into your imagination as we begin. So your MetaGoddess or another archetype of the goddess, just to settle into your body. And I'm just going to ask that people close their eyes and just take a moment to ground and center. Then imagine it is as if you are standing in a beautiful, spacious room, and you can look, and there are windows all around. The walls are mostly large glass windows, and you can look around and you can see the stars, you can see the galaxies through these windows, and you can tell that you're up high, up into the sky. So it's some kind of a tower, some kind of a structure that you're in where you can look out and see the sky. And then all of a sudden you see, as if a meteor appears and it shoots through the glass in the window. It doesn't cause any harm to the glass, but there's a bright light in front of you now. And that beautiful, bright, glowing light transforms into a goddess. And this is the goddess, your own MetaGoddess, or this own archetype of the feminine that is alive for you and who has been guiding you. And I want you just to take a moment to observe, to see her, to be present with her, to understand the ways that she has been present for you through your life, and just to receive a message from her. It might be that she has something in her hands that she gives to you. It may be that she has words. She has a message for you through words. It may be that you see within her a reflection of an aspect of yourself. So just take a moment to receive that message from her that she has for you at this time to help guide you on your path. Okay, so I want you to now just slowly come back, bring your attention back into the room. If you want, if you have any paper nearby or anything you want to capture the image or anything that came through, you might do that. Just take a moment. And if anybody wants to share what came through, I'm going to go ahead now and make it so that everyone can unmute themselves. And again, if anybody has a challenge with that, you can raise your hand, you can give us a message to let us know. Just taking me a moment.
So while you're doing that, Tammy, I'll just share. So I have the Scorpio MetaGoddess and I'm Venus in Aries. But of course, my Venus in Aries is...
Wait a second. Sorry, Kaylin. I have to mute. I've got to go through and mute you for a second. So I don't want to miss what you're saying. Okay.
Okay, cool. Anyway, so basically, well, she showed up in like black leather and swords. And it was like, it's like there's this saying that I've had sometimes, like, I don't do this very often because I have a lot of Neptune and Pisces sun, so it really softens my Venus in Aries and my Scorpio goddess. But it's like when I have to get my swords out, right? But she had her swords sheathed, and basically she just said, "You're doing great, keep it up." I was like, yes, thank you. I've been accused of not being fierce enough in the past. So, yeah. Anyway.
Thank you. Wow. Yes. Bravo.
Yay for me.
Yay for you. I'll say too this time, because I actually went into it myself as well. I always think it's fun when I have the vision and then I get to do it myself. It's always awesome. I loved my MetaGoddess. She's Gemini, and she handed me a flower, and when she did, it was like she was helping me remember that I am. It's like my whole body was comprised of flowers, and there was such this sweetness that I felt with her, and just this love and appreciation for me and my magical self, and something about just being comprised of this flowering feminine, magical flowering Gemini feminine. She just gifted me with the remembrance of that part of who I am, which was very powerful.
Yay. Right, especially after all you've been through recently. So,
yeah, that kind of fresh new energy is very much appreciated.
Yes, beautiful. Anybody else, or anybody have questions? So, we have a few more minutes, but if nobody speaks up, we might end it early.
I'll share.
Yes.
It's Ariana. My MetaGoddess is Aries, and I have Venus in Aries and Mercury and my Sun. Lots and lots of Aries. And mine, she showed up kind of as Isis, with the big wings, and she put her hand on my heart, and it was really cool. It was like, and she was like, they always get it wrong, and like my sternum cracked open, like backwards, so it was like the front of my sternum broke open, and I felt these wings coming out through the front instead of how it's always the wings in the back of the goddess, and it was like coming out through my heart, and it was these big giant wings kind of opening up and unfolding, and I thought that was really cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Winged heart.
Yeah. But I was just so funny because she was like, they always get it wrong. And I was like all the statues or the people making or whatever. And I just was like, yeah, that sounds like something I would say, or Aries would say.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you for sharing that, Ariana.
Thank you, Ariana.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, this is Anna.
Hey, Anna.
So, Kaylin, I just wanted to tell you I also have the Scorpio overtone, and what she said to me was very personal, but she's definitely a dominatrix. Absolutely. It was really cool. And when she came in, it was like, she's like, oh no, I'm the star coming through the windows. When she came in, she said, no, I'm the dark star coming in. And I was like, okay. I like that song. I just wanted to say that. Yes, definitely the leather crack the whip kind of.
Awesome.
Right. Beautiful. That's awesome. Glad I'm not the only one. Anybody else? Any questions? Any ahas, comments, anything you want to share about the journey or anything else? Doesn't have to be about that.
There's a question that's on chat, and maybe I missed the answer to it, but somebody asked, with Aries ending, what's the next path for us with Aries MetaGoddess? Who is it?
Yeah, we missed that one.
Well, I actually did address it, and by saying we'll talk about it in the next class.
Okay.
Because we're going to be addressing the Aries MetaGoddess and who she is and how she's been showing up, and then we'll be addressing, and we're just kind of dreaming into Pisces. We don't, we'll know more once we've experienced her, but we're going to be dreaming into that.
It will be the Pisces. She will shift into Pisces.
Shifting into Pisces, yeah.
So we're going to do a new Pisces then, not this whole martyr crap thing.
Oh,
right?
God, yes.
Right, exactly. New Pisces. Thank you.
Yes, Ariana, I have to say that, you know, being Venus and Aries myself, and also having, you know, worked this Aries overtone, that Aries goddess, you know, to shift into Pisces, there's going to be some fierce, you know, I'm showing up, I'm all in, I'm, you know, I'm powerful, I'm here. It's definitely not going to be, you know, being on the cross or being the one who
we will not go gently into that good night.
Yeah, we're done with that.
Yeah.
We've had like 104 years of Aries, so before Pisces comes along, so, you know, some opportunity to have a more fierce expression of that. Compassion, fierce compassion really is what it was. I think just the summary of it, but we'll be getting more into that as well.
And you could say, I think what we've been feeling in this current Aries cycle is that already it's kind of a bridge cycle, because, you know, on the opposite perspective on that, we've, with this fierce feminine, and you can see it again with the Me Too movement and all of that, there is also this there is an aspect to it that does feel like it's very compassionate also to the fierce feminine that's arising now, is compassion for the suffering in the world and for injustice and wanting to bring that into balance. But there's this, you know, there, you could say that this is a bridge cycle, so there is already some influence from the Pisces dimension in this Aries cycle, as there will be Aries in the next Pisces cycle.
Right. You know, that reminds me of what you're saying, Tammy, is the Global Sisterhood video that's been out this last week. And it is that fierce feminine, you know, standing in her strength and power, but also saying it's not about shame, blame, and complain anymore. It is about how do we have compassion, and what about the men who've been told they have to be a certain way? And what about the women who haven't been able to stand up and say what happened to them because it was too dangerous, or, you know, there was no support for that. And so we can see that Aries fierce piece, but there is also compassion that is being brought into it. So I think that is a beautiful example of the weaving of Aries and Pisces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's powerful, and it's generative when you feel that at the root, that transpersonal love, that care for that as the grounding of what it is that you're wanting to protect and bring into balance.
You know, when some of these women are talking about how they feel what is in the collective, they feel the pain, the trauma, the hurt, the whatever's been going on, right? They feel that even if it hasn't happened to them, they are sensitive to that. And that is such a Pisces quality, to be able to merge into someone else's pain, someone else's, you know, exactly where they're at, and meet them there instead of trying to get them to be somewhere they're not.
Yes.
So that makes me feel a lot better about Pisces.
Right. Well, it's another one that's been somewhat judged against, like Virgo, right? Being critical and cold. Pisces being, you know, wishy-washy and codependent, and, you know, all of those overgiving, those kinds of things. But that's really not the essence of Pisces. It's really like, how do we have compassion? How can I help and heal? How can I show up in my strength and power to be a force of healing in this world?
And how is it courageous to actually have compassion? How does that actually hone us as warriors of love to have that deep compassion, that fierceness? If we feel that deep connection from the heart with others and with our global community, our global sisterhood and brotherhood, then how does that make us stronger as the warrior force in the world?
And it could, I think it's probably perfect timing in a sense too, because we've had this sort of movement of that more fierce Aries, restoring the cosmic balance, and all that's good, and yet also make sure it's tempered and balanced with compassion.
Well, and if you look at it too, we've got two of the most fierce, really intense archetypes of the feminine. You've got Aries, you've got Leo, and then you have Aries, and then you have Scorpio all in a row. And Aries is shifting to Pisces, and Scorpio is shifting to Libra. So there is a profound softening that's happening. It's almost like maybe the work has been done by the fierce feminine to the degree now that we can show our strength with greater softness. Maybe that's part of the shift internally, personally and collectively.
Thank you for asking that question, Ariana, because that's helping us figure out what we're going to say next.
Awesome. I wasn't the one who originated it, so I think it looks like Starzia should get credit for that.
Right.
But thank you. Yeah, that definitely makes me feel better about going to Pisces. All my Aries rebelling. No. Don't make me change.
Well, we're just going to add some things too.
Aries ego, come on.
Ego? Aries has ego?
No.
I'm with you on that, Ariana. The Scorpio, I'm like going, Libra? Really? What the?
Yeah.
Collaborative relationships? Really? Can't I just do my own thing?
Yeah.
Well, those are both the traditionally Mars-ruled signs, and they're shifting into Libra's traditionally ruled by Venus, and Pisces is where Venus is traditionally exalted. So it's softening, and it's very Venus-y. It's like okay, we've gotten their attention by being the kind of Venus goddess, and then now we're going to be the soft Venus goddess. It's like the grandmothers talk about it all being feminine and yin and all of that.
But there is a solar feminine, yang expression of the feminine. Obviously, Aries is very yang. Leo, yang. Yeah. Pisces, very yin expression. But yeah, so some are more yin, some are more yang, some are kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah.
But as we're saying all of this, to me it feels again like this Aries cycle is so critical to ground the fierce feminine in her fullest culmination expression now, because we need that to just be such a new and established part of the culture now and of the conversation, that it's fully integrated. It's in it, even if it doesn't look like that on the world stage all the time, to have that sense that, and I know I feel that way. I know a lot of women feel that way, that what's happening now is so big. This is not going away. She's here. She's here to stay. This is massive.
Woo! Yeah. Yeah, girl. Yeah, woo!
She's
I'm
here.
finally allowed to be pissed off.
There's her light. Her fire.
Yeah, her light. Thanks, Margot, for the light.
And that assault lamp. There's another one.
Wow, interesting theme here.
Yes. Beautiful. Is there anything more you wanted to say, Margot?
Yeah.
I just really appreciate the the depth of connection to the earth and the transmission that you ladies are providing, that it's profound and it's so authentic, and it really connects to what I've been searching for, and so grateful to learn from you. And I feel really strongly activated in the Venus cycle, and it's been profound, and it continues to be a beautiful journey, and I hope to share more with you guys, all y'all. Woo! Woo!
So glad you're with us.
Yes.
So glad to be here. Thank you. Thanks. Woo! I think activating the throat chakra, and like toning, and that's very Venus, and I have an A, like opening to the depths of our yonis, the whole thing. I love it.
Beautiful. Yes.
Woo!
Yes.
Yes, and Venus rising and having her first gate soon will be really activating all of that. It's part of the theology. So yeah, woohoo.
Can't wait to see her, and looking for her regularly, even though I know I can't see her. Looking for her means that when I do see her, I'm gonna bawl my head off and have a total activation, and it's gonna be super intense and just get the full experience of this totally natural miracle that is so beautiful and accessible.
Yes.
And when she's hiding, it's like, I think of it like a wild creature. Why do we love wild things? Because they're not predictable. You can't say, well, I'm for sure going to see this bear on this day, or I'm going to see Venus. Well, maybe you have to wait. Maybe,
you have to wait.
Yeah.
There's clouds.
Right.
Serious cloud action.
Yeah, here too.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm in Montana, and it's big sky country, and I'd love to have all y'all out here someday in the mountains and doing the sky watching and the ceremony and everything.
That would be awesome.
Absolutely. Margot, where are you in Montana?
I'm near Yellowstone.
Oh, you are? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Bozeman,
yeah. I lived in Missoula for a couple of years. Yeah, Montana is beautiful. It'd be so fun.
Yeah. You went to University of Montana. I saw that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Wow. That's something to dream into.
It is. Yes. Woohoo.
Woo! Woo!
Awesome. All right.
So I think we might be complete unless anybody has anything burning they want to share real quick. Otherwise, we're going to wrap this up.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody. And we can just say good night. Okay, everybody's unmuted. So good night.
Good night.
Good night. Bye. Thank you. Oh, good night.
Sorry.
Oh.